Hello everyone! As business grows, it's very important to grow your CRM and general technical infrastructure. Speaking of CRM, you need to update the database, fields, automation, etc. constantly on the daily basis. To do that directly on the production could lead to significant issues. Without a proper system, you will not be able to align with business expectations. Throughout my career, I have implemented many such processes for various clients. Recently, one client asked for a familiar question: how can we close business requests faster without additional cost or delays? The answer lies in having a well-structured process system. In this video, I will walk you through the key infrastructure elements and workflow setup using Salesforce CRM. Let's dive in. Alright guys, let's start from simple things. The first thing we need to discuss is what roles we will be using. So I don't think that it will be some kind of Scrum training or something like this. We will use some concepts from Agile methodology Scrum. You can read about this a little bit more or just ask ChatGPT to understand how it works. And also I will not explain you how you can deploy things, because at each point it will be a lot of details that you need to do. The main goal of this video is just to show you the concept of the process that you can just copy and implement in your process, so you can avoid issues that you have currently with the delivery of features. So the first thing I want to start from is roles. So roles, as you can see in brackets, I added like Scrum related. So I also did three columns here, and I picked like must have, good to have, nice to have. That is some basic things that you need to have to deliver features using CRM. So as I mentioned before, in our example, it will be like a Salesforce CRM, but if your CRM supports all the things that I will mention in this video, so it doesn't matter if it's Salesforce or not, just keep in mind the general concept. So the first thing, let's discuss what we must have in our process. So first thing is product owner. Product owner is a person who actually communicates with the business and understands what we need to do from the business perspective. In the ideal world, it's good to have a product owner that is actually familiar with the CRM, with the technology and all the things. Not required, but good to have. The second point is an admin / developer. It depends on complexity of your tasks. It's better to have admin and developer, of course, but it also depends on your budget. And the third role is quality assurance engineer. Actually, that is the person who provides testing activities on your system and basically controls the quality. So good to have is Scrum Master. So again, if you're not familiar with the Scrum, it's better to read about the process. In the simple words, Scrum Master is a person who actually controls all your meetings, provides information from like a product owner to the team, controls timings of your meetings, because sometimes you can start your conversation about some features, and for instance you have 10 features to discuss, but one feature can take like 1 hour to discuss. So that is the person who actually controls timings to make sure that we are in time and we can discuss everything. And all other things, that is what you can read in the Scrum explanation. The second point here, good to have, is consultant. Consultant is, of course, like similar to administrator and developer, but consultants, they usually know better many different parts of your CRM in perspective of Salesforce, because as you know, like Salesforce, it's not just a CRM, it contains many products inside. So for instance, you need to update like your CRM, you need to update your Service Cloud for support, you need to connect Slack as a communication platform. So consultant can help you to organize communication about all these things, because they know and they certified in these products, and they can explain in technical details to administrators and developers what to do. Okay. So, and business analyst, that is also very straightforward, good to have, of course, because as I mentioned before, product owner, it communicates with the business, and we need to transform all these requirements, business requirements, to descriptions or documentation for your CRM, right? So for instance, you need to do some kind of email sending in your CRM, and what business analyst does is actually creates a description of this task, but you can mention automation flows, for instance, in Salesforce and so on, so you can better understand like what technically we need to do in the CRM. And nice to have, of course, like I mentioned here, it's like DevOps. DevOps is, this position is basically and responsibility to deliver of your changes from one org to another, right? Meaning like if you have a production, also you have some kind of test orgs where you actually develop some features. And some of them can be simple, like fields creation or like permission setting, etc. But very usual, you can have like new integration with a third-party system. You can have like a new component for your CRM or something like this. All these things are related to code, and where you have some files that you need to deploy from your test environment to the production. And DevOps, that is the person who actually controls this system. Okay, so usually we need DevOps when we have several teams that are working on like one org or several orgs, and it helps to deploy all the things. So of course, nice to have more admins and more devs based on your scope and list of features you want to implement. And AQA, it's like automated QA engineer. That is the person who actually helps with the testing and the quality control. What they do is they create some kind of automated tests that, instead of, if we compare it to the regular QA engineer, they usually do it manually. They create test cases and they go through test scenarios and test the system manually. Automated QA engineers, they can use these test cases and create some, if we can say, like automated actions that will test your system without human interaction. So that is, I would say, the list of roles is good to have. In our example, we will do very simple scenario with a must-have, and yeah, let's move on. Okay, so the next thing is roadmap, right? So why it's important? It's important because only you know your business better than the team, right? So it's very important before we start like any development or like working on the documentation. It's very important to sit down and discuss some high-level goals that we need to do, that we need to complete maybe this year, for instance. Like big goals. In my example, I set like 3 projects we want to complete, right? Maybe we want to implement like a new customer support system. Maybe we want to integrate a new communication platform, and so on, some big things. Usually, when you create a roadmap, what is related to the business and product owner to discuss it. And usually for each project, we set like deadlines, right? So that is like a basic things we need to complete. So we have project 1, deadline is in May, project 2, deadline is in August, and project 3 is with a deadline in October, right? So that is important because business needs to understand when we can complete this project. So we set these deadlines, so we will keep transparency between the team and the business. Okay, so the second thing, that is the same roadmap, but like I've set it as a real scope here. Why it's not the roadmap? This is because usually you have not only projects related tasks, but also, as I said here, like business as usual tasks. Meaning, like, for instance, we need to deliver project 1 in May. But in the background, the team can report some new things that you have to do, like maybe new fields, maybe you need to change some layouts, you know, it's just like, you know, on the daily basis you can receive similar requests, and even if your priority is maybe like a medium, we still need to do. So that is why when you plan your activities, it's good to have some kind of split between first priority projects, tasks, and also include some kind of business as usual tasks. Also, sometimes it's good to do it in a little bit different way. One period you work and focus only on the project tasks, and you can provide like 2 weeks to complete business as usual tasks. It depends on the process. You need to try and discuss with the team, discuss with the business what is better for you. Okay, but don't forget that you will always have them. All right, let's discuss our project composition. Right, what parts we will use to complete the project. The first thing you need to do is you need to decide what tool you want to use to track of your tasks, bugs, and so on in the system. There are several tools on the market. It really doesn't matter what you choose. The classic one is Jira from Atlassian, and Confluence is a document management tool, right? But you can pick whatever you want. The only thing is that it covers all our things that we are going to complete. You can try Asana or or whatever, right? This is just a technical tool. The main important part is in the project composition. We need to have at least these 3 things. The first thing is, we can call it like a project epic. Project epic, it's some kind of like a category of your tasks. If your project is not big, you can even create one epic and add all your tasks into this epic. If you have a big project for several months, usually this project contains different epics to combine and do this categorization for tasks. Under this project epic, we have like a user story or tasks. User story, that is like a name from the Scrum methodology, where you put like a user story in specific context. I don't think that we need to spend some time on this. You can read about like a format, how you can use it. I would better like call it as a task because it's simple, just for our understanding. So every user story or tasks, it has like a business description where your product owner or business analyst explains what to do, right? So it should be also a priority of this task. It should be set by product owner, because product owner in communication with the business, and they actually know what should be done faster, right? Or like earlier, it depends. Also, user story, it should include estimation. estimation from the team. When I am saying team, it means like, I will explain you about this a little bit more later, but in general, product owner and the team, they need to set estimation, and they both agree on this estimation, and they need to understand what it means, right? So we will not use hours, but just as an example, tasks and estimation, like, I don't know, 20 hours, meaning like this task will cost you like 20 hours of the implementation. Okay, hours is not good metric to track, but let's discuss it a bit later. And also very good to have is acceptance criteria, that is for like developers and QA engineers to understand like what should be done technically and what is the acceptance of this task technically, right? So for instance, create a button, the button opens like a pop-up and so on. So it should be explanation for the like QA engineer to understand what to expect from this task. And also the third thing here is a bug. It's basically like a report item from the QA team. If they find something during the testing, they need to create a bug in your tracking tool. Or sometimes it's possible to receive some issues from the business as well, right? So usually they create like a bug, or they report to the QA team, and that is a better solution. And QA team will report a bug into the system. Then product owner needs to give a priority to this bug, and you can complete it. Okay, so let's discuss about how we can structure our tasks and into the timeline. Okay, the first thing I want to mention is all tasks that you create, that actually like created by like a product owner or like a business analyst, it will go to the backlog. Backlog is just a huge list of all your tasks where product owner can set priority, right? Priority, it depends on your process as well. To keep it simple, I would recommend to start from 3 priorities: low, medium, high. And so high at the top, medium in the middle, and low at the bottom of your product backlog. It doesn't mean that you can work on low priority tasks and you need to work on the high priority. It depends on the process, and sometimes it does make sense to complete like 2 high priority tasks and maybe 10 low priority, right? You just need to communicate with the team. So let's imagine we have our roadmap, we have all our tasks that are created in the backlog, and then we need to set them into the time frame. So what we are going to use, we are going to use sprint. In our example, I used like 2-week sprints, meaning like we open our backlog, and for instance we have a sprint 1, so we set like a date for 2 weeks, and we need to put tasks from the backlog to the sprint. After we complete the sprint, we create the second sprint and we put tasks to the next one, right? So in this example, we will slowly remove tasks from the backlog and we set it to the sprint. Okay, so the next thing we need to understand is how we can estimate tasks. Okay, so for tasks, what we usually do is we use estimation in story points, not in hours. Why we don't use hours is because that is a metric that is very hard to predict, especially in the software development, because one task can take like 4 or can take like 8 hours. It's really hard to measure by hours, and there are a lot of unpredictable things that can happen. So what we recommend to do, we recommend to use story points. Story points is some kind of abstract thing, okay? So what you do, you estimate your task based on like complexity. So I have this like a paragraph that I copy from Atlassian Jira help manual, like a story points are units of measure for expressing an estimate of the overall effort required to fully implement a product backlog item. So meaning we can use this abstract estimation for the task. So there are several ways how you can do this. For instance, you can use like a t-shirt size, right? It can be like XS, S, M, L, XL, etc. Right? We honestly don't like it because it's very hard to calculate them and summarize how many story points we have in the sprint. So what we usually use is we use like a Fibonacci sequence, meaning like we can use like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, etc. to estimate our tasks. So I would recommend to start from 1 to 8 and maybe 13, but you need to discuss it with the team. So as more complex your task is, it means like you need to split this task into 2-1, right? So for instance, if you discuss with the team some like a big integration with a ERP system, and there are some things that involve like a database change, you need to create some Apex classes, connection points. You understand that this is like not even like 13, it's even more, right? So in this example, it's better to split this task into several pieces to have like from like 3 to 8 several tasks and then complete them during the sprint. So in the story point, it's a little bit hard to implement in the beginning because it's not ours and it's like some abstract thing. What is good to do is you need to sit down together with the team and you need to create a reference table, a story point reference table, where you set like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and 13 if you want. I would recommend to do this from 1 to 8, as I mentioned before. But for each of these story point, you need to put example of this task, right? For instance, for the one story point, I've set like change field label. So we understand that that is the most simple task that we can complete, and it will take one story point for us. Meaning, like, if you have a task in your backlog, it doesn't matter what is priority, right? Your responsibility as a team is to estimate this task. And if you see something similar to this, you set one. And there are some tools how you can communicate with the team. You can read about this like a planning poker or something like this, but the thing is, one person can say like, I'm thinking like on the planning session, I'm thinking this is one story point, and the team needs to agree or explain why it's 2 or 3 or whatever, and the team needs to agree on the final estimation and set it to the task. And the same is for 2 story points, 3, 5, and 8. So 2, 3, 5, 8, meaning like it's like a complexity. So 8, it will be the most complex task you need to complete. Okay, so that is how you can measure it. Okay, if we finish with the estimation, now we understand how to do this. Let's talk about 2 week sprint schedule. What meetings you need to have during the sprint to keep delivering all your items. So let's discuss this example. We have basically like a week from Monday to Friday. We have 2 weeks of the sprint. The third week I will explain it a bit later. So, and the first thing we need to do is like a sprint planning. Let's imagine you want to do this on Monday. The main thing for sprint planning is, first of all, to discuss the sprint goal. You need to discuss it always, and actually all tasks that you actually add to the sprint, the team commits that it will be delivered by the end of the sprint. Okay, so meaning like after we understand the sprint goal, we start moving tasks from the backlog to the sprint, and one by one we review these tasks, and the team can ask questions to the PO about some maybe details of the implementation to be sure that they understand fully how to complete it. So you can ask like a fair question, how to understand how many tasks we need to add to the sprint. So the answer is it takes time. Okay, so to understand how many, because as you remember, each task in the backlog, all of them should have story points inside. So basically the first from 3 to 4 sprints, you need to roughly understand how much work you can complete, right? So let's imagine we are just starting and we're using like a sprint number 1. So we roughly add some tasks and we summarize all story points that we have in the sprint. After we complete the sprint, we can do a review and we can see like, do we have something still in the sprint that we need to complete that is actually undone? So if you have it, then you need to remove it next time. Or otherwise, maybe on Tuesday, on the week 2, you complete all your tasks, right? So meaning, when you plan the sprint number 2, and let's do like an example. Let's imagine in the sprint number 1, you just set like 50 story points in the sprint. But then, by the end of the sprint, you can see that you complete only 40. It means next time you will just use this 40 as an estimation in the sprint. And as I mentioned before, usually it takes from 3 to 4 sprints to understand this number of story points you need to complete during your development process. Okay, so after your sprint planning, you have your sprint with all your tasks in the system, and you start development. So during the development, every day it should be very quick daily meeting where you have around like 10 minutes, and every team member needs to share like what things was done yesterday, and what is the plan for today, and if there is some questions, it can be discussed quickly. If it is just like a more complex question, it's better to have a separate meeting to discuss. But that is just like a checkup every day with the team to understand the progress during the sprint. So on the Wednesday, as you can see, every Wednesday we have this meeting, backlog review. What it means is, because during your development process, product owner can add new tasks. The team from the business, like a sales team or service team, they can report a new task as well. And in the backlog, you will have them, and the main responsibility of the product owner is to add some context to complete like a business description priority, to be able during the backlog review to sit down with the team, explain this task, and set an estimation for this task, right? So the goal is to have all your tasks in the backlog with the estimation. That is why you need to sit down for like 1 hour, 1 hour and a half together with the team, review the backlog, ask questions to the PO or business analyst, the developers, administrators, QA engineers. They need to understand what should be done, and they need to set an estimation, and PO needs to understand this estimation and agree on this, right? That is the reason of these meetings. So on the second week, when we finish our sprint on Friday, we have a sprint review. Okay, so during the sprint review, it depends on your process, but what I recommend to do from the beginning, and you can then change it, is the team needs to show what they done during the sprint. It's some kind of like a demo of features. To the sprint review, you can invite like a business user. It's better to invite business users because they will use it and test on their side. So to show them how you complete items during the sprint. Then the second meeting here, like a sprint retrospective or sprint retro, it is maybe it will be not necessary for the beginning, but I highly recommend to use this time. Just give 1 hour to sit down with the team where you can discuss what was like okay during the sprint, some bad experience during the sprint. You need to highlight this and create some action points how to fix it or continue doing if these items are good, right? So there are several techniques how to do this. That is usually what Scrum Master does, because there are some different methodologies how to do this, but you can also like read about this in details. A very good meeting to slowly adopt and improve your team and remove all necessary issues. So before we discuss at this point the third week, right, let me just quickly show you working infrastructure. Okay, so that is your production. Okay, so your production, that is where your business users actually do their work, and I highly recommend to avoid any technical changes on the production, like automation, field changes, etc. Because as your system grows, it's very hard to predict what causes, what issues can cause this change in the system, right? So you can think like, okay, so I will create like automation for field change, but it can be some different types of records that will change as well. And it's better to avoid any changes on the production. So usually, like all modern CRMs, in our example, we will use Salesforce. They use sandboxes or test environments. In general, that is like a copy of your production environment, but without your data or limited data if you want to test it. So let's see how we can structure our work. So each of your team members, they need to have their like own sandbox. Meaning, like when you have a task, the first task can be assigned to the administrator, the second task can be assigned to the developer, and they can work on this task on their sandbox. Okay, so they will not overwrite each other or whatever, because sometimes if you do like all your process on the project, on the same project, it's better to to split sandboxes and avoid overwriting. So after you complete, administrator and developer complete their task, they can move these changes to the sandbox, and we can call it like a staging. Meaning like all tasks that you complete, you move it to the one sandbox where actually QA engineers, they can test your task. They can just go through their test cases or test scenarios to see how it works. Also, usually they have some kind of like a regression testing things where they need to see if this change affects our previous implementation or not. So that is where all testing is completed during the development. So this sandbox that we call like UAT stands for user acceptance testing. Meaning like on this sandbox, after we complete the whole sprint, these 2 weeks, okay, we complete all these items, we need to deploy on the week 3. I understand that it's like sprint planning as well for the sprint number 2, but we need to deploy all these changes from the sprint to the sandbox UAT. This is why I mentioned that usually in like big companies and big infrastructure, there are some DevOps that actually do this job, right? But in small companies and SMBs, usually like developers, administrators can deploy it. So we deploy all these changes to the UAT sandbox, and we do this period that I set as an example. We use like 2 days of testing from the users, meaning like product owner, business users, they can log into the sandbox and they can see and try all new changes that you are going to deploy on Wednesday to the production. Meaning like if they find something strange or maybe some issues or whatever, they can report, or in like a positive scenario, it should be all okay and they can send like a green light for the deployment on Wednesday. And on Wednesday we deploy all these changes to the production environment and continue working on the sprint 2. So using this approach, you can iterate all your tasks during the sprint one by one, right? So if we summarize, first of all, you need to have of course a team. You need to have a roadmap with the projects. Then you need to split all your projects into tasks and then into sprints. Plan with the team, and you have to deliver all your tasks that you set in the sprint by the end of the sprint, and then iterate. And this is like a sprint by sprint. You can deploy changes. So for why it's called like Agile is because let's imagine you can receive like a high priority task from the service team that we need to complete, right? So we can give a room for this task in the next sprint and complete it during the next sprint, right? Or maybe some new software released and we need to adopt, right? So using this approach with the sprint planning, we can always understand priorities, and product owner can provide these priorities to the team, and it can be changed based on the context, right? So that is the basic process. The last thing I want to show you, that is only like our recommendation. It's up to you how you can use your flow. It's better to try and then adopt. But that is like a sprint board example that you can use. You can copy it and it will work for sure. The whole process, it's just like from A to Z. You can just implement it and it will help you to deliver all your things. So sprint board, what it means is all modern like project management systems like Jira, Asana or whatever, they provide like sprint management and task management in the system. So each task can have a status, and what we recommend to do is we recommend to implement the following statuses that we have in this horizontal line, and we recommend to use like a board view of these tasks. So let's go through quickly through all these things. So first, let's imagine we start our sprint, and all our tasks will be in to do. Then after you start your working on this task, it can be development or it can be administrative task. So we set it to the in progress. After we complete this task and we deployed it to the staging sandbox, we can move this task to the ready for QA. QAs, they can see all tasks that are ready for QA, and when they start testing this task, they just move it to the QA in progress. And after they complete this task, they set it to the ready for UAT. And slowly, during like a process from to do to the ready to UAT, we complete all our tasks and test it on the staging sandbox. Then, by the end of the sprint, we will have all, in the ideal world, we will have all ready for UAT tasks, and we need to then deploy them to the UAT from here on Monday and on the third week. And QA engineers, they need to do like testing. Usually it's not that deep as you do on the staging, but still it should be done some smoke testing or whatever to remove some blockers in the system. And then after we complete this testing, we can move this all tasks to the ready for production, and meaning like we do our UAT, and then after deployment is complete, we move all the stuff to the done. So that is as simple as that. Actually, I would say that's it for the process. Using this schema, you can implement it and complete your process very easily. Just do this step by step, and during the implementation, you can read like maybe more materials about this, adopt some things, but it should work for 100%. Okay, so that's it for today. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.